Yeah, this is really something. Just brief background: Scot Pollard, 6'10", 260-pound center from Torrey Pines, went to Kansas, played a decade plus in the NBA. He's got a genetic heart problem, was hospitalized last week, looking for a heart donor for a true transplant. They were really struggling to keep him alive at Vanderbilt University's medical center. The NBA interceded, used its contacts. They got him a heart. He had heart surgery last Friday. By Saturday, he was up walking. It's the most amazing thing I've seen. They had him with all the nurses taking steps, and he had all these needles and the tree of meds on both sides of him. So he has done walking. There was an emergency setback. They had to go back in. They added a defibrillator to help with the heartbeat. I saw a picture of it on his chest, and it's wired in to help normalize the heartbeat of the transplanted heart, because the biggest issue when heart transplants is body rejection.
Yeah.
He has not had that. They have stabilized the heartbeat. I saw him walking the length of the room yesterday on video with less of the med trees around him. And last night he was transferred out of ICU down to a, I guess they call it step down unit, and they will continue there. So far, so good. It's an amazing story about, can you imagine courage?
Oh, yeah.
To have to experience this and
huge.
not know whether this works or something will happen an hour from now or what happens in the future. So it's a hell of a story. Hockey. We talked about this last week. Morgan Riley, Toronto Maple Leaf defenseman, cross-checked an Ottawa player after the Ottawa player skated in on an empty net and fired a wicked slap shot rather than just poking the puck into the net. Morgan Riley took 6 strides across the ice, cross-checked the guy on the head, got suspended 5 games without pay, significant sanction to the Maple Leafs. Anyhow, they did an appeal hearing. Gary Bettman was the one that heard the appeal, and he blew them out of the water. He issued like a 16-page response to Morgan Riley. He said, any conversation anybody of the Maple Leafs made about empty net goal has nothing to do with what happened. He scored the goal the way he scored the goal. In essence, Gary Bettman said, I don't want to hear anything about the code of ethics. He shouldn't have taken a slap shot into an empty net. He should just poke. That has nothing to do with the conversation. And then he lectured Morgan Riley when he turned down the appeal. He said, what happened after that goal? That wasn't self-defense. That wasn't an accident. That wasn't a reflex movement on your part. You skated across the ice from the blue line in to the far boards to nail this guy. And he said, if you didn't have a clean reputation, because he'd never been involved in any of this junk before, you would have gotten 10 games because it was such a violent act.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's people on Twitter just killing me. I said, yeah, we'll find out how violent an act it was, or whether it was just him standing up for his team. RCMP should show up with an arrest warrant. You assaulted the guy with a hockey stick, a deadly weapon. And we'll see what you're going to say. Gary Bettman blew the Maple Leafs coach out, the general manager out, the teammates. Say, I don't want to hear anything about he's a stand-up guy. He was just representing the logo on the front of the jersey. Jeez. Anyhow, Gary Bettman, 5-game suspension stands in place. I don't understand this. The Anaheim Ducks are really struggling. I do not understand them shopping Trevor Zegras, high #1 draft pick, 2 gifted seasons. He's had a lot of injuries the last 2 years. He's on the trade block, and the report is the Montreal Canadiens might be willing to trade a 1 and a 2 to get Zegras from the Ducks. Zegras has got only 4 goals this year after back-to-back 23-goal seasons, but he's had major injuries. They're also shopping Adam Henrique, their veteran center iceman, try to move him in a deal. I understand rebuild. I understand collecting assets, but hey, Canada hockey fans, you're invited to jump on in Fans Forum and give us your opinion there. Somewhere along the line, you got to stop trading players, and you need to put all these assets on the ice and let them grow and play together. And that's painful to have a really young team. But the Ducks are they keep moving guys. They keep bringing more draft picks in, put them on, and don't work, then they trade them. Or they trade them too early. So I'm a little stunned at how the Ducks are doing business. And the last one has to do with NASCAR. Daytona 500. Ugly crashes right at the end. A 23-car crash with 8 laps left. 5-car crash with 1 lap left. And a real tough time for a very popular guy here, Jimmie Johnson. He struggled. He had to qualify in the twin races on Thursday to get into the 500. because your chance to get in is based on what you did last year. And Jimmie did not have a good season his first year as a team owner, and he finally got in, but he finished 28th, way back of the pack. And I think this is shocking, I think, for him to have had all this great success, 7-time NASCAR points champions, won all these big races, and he can't put a competitive team on the speedway right now. And I think the frustration level's really growing. He's got multiple cars, and none of them are up to speed. None of them seem to have the horsepower and the aerodynamics to compete with the guys that are running up front. So the end of his career, this is kind of rocky for Jimmie Johnson. That it hasn't worked out.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I watched the end of that Daytona 500, and there was this crash right at the finish line, right?
With the leaders.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy the way that whole thing went, because there were the rain delays and all kinds of funky things in that race. I want to talk about that Maple Leaf situation, because it's the unwritten rules, right?
Code.
And the code. And this just goes back to all the traditionalists that don't like people celebrating in the end zone when they score a touchdown.
And don't put a bunt down in the 9th inning when you're being no hit.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, John, where in this list of rules do I read this code? I don't see it written down anywhere.
Yeah, well, it's the unwritten rules, and it's a load of crap, So it's a lot of these old school traditional guys. It's just this kind of conservative mentality. And I don't mean that politically conservative. I mean it like traditional conservative. And so they have to realize this is a entertainment. It's a game. I mean, imagine if you're in an NBA game and the one team is up by 20 with a minute to go, and the ball gets loose and the guy takes it down the other way and does a slam dunk. You think he should get cross-checked, or should he only just do a layup because they're up by 20?
The code.
Yeah, it's just stupid.
It's absolutely amazing. And the junk that came out of the mouths of Maple Leaf players and their coach, that this was okay, that Morgan Riley skated from the blue line, took 6 full strides, and cross-checked the Ottawa player, never saw him coming in the neck.
No, it's not okay. I mean, it's just a fragile ego. It's a bunch of crap. So good on Bettman, excuse me, for ignoring that. But the other story on the line here was the Scot Pollard story. And I don't know medically how you kickstart a heart. I mean, that's a Motley Crue reference, but how do you put in a cadaver heart and then start it up again? I mean, it's mind boggling.
It's all wired, but it's modern day medicine. But, my biggest fear, because we talked about this last week, was rejection of the transplant heart. And that happens. And then when I heard late at night, I had gotten a text that they've had to add a defibrillator to help steady the heartbeat of the transplanted heart. I thought, boy, that's not good. And then to see these pictures of him actually walking with doctors and nurses.
Yeah.
Just walking.
Now, what happened to his original heart?
Genetic heart problem killed his father.
Oh.
So it was an inherited thing.
Mm.
So he's got kids. I mean, it's a hell of a story. So thumbs up to Scot Pollard, the former Torrey Pine star. Wow, we've talked about a lot of